What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Gen Z Money Podcast, where we turn financial peace to your reality. I'm your host, James Bowman, and today's guest, I bring on Darius, who is kind of like myself. I like to call myself a real estate rookie, to where I don't own 100 apartment complexes, but I also own more than one home. And Darius comes on to tell the story on how he purchased his first property. And when you guys hear this story, I'm telling you, it is going to give you that vibe of finding a diamond in the rough. I don't want to give away too much of his story because it's just crazy to think that you're able, when you dig deep, when you look harder, when you look at things that everyone else is looking past, you can still find value, even in this market today. So I don't want to give away too much of his story. So let's get right into our interview. What's going on, Darius? Welcome to the Gen Z Money Podcast, man. How you doing today?
What's going on, man? I'm doing great. I'm doing amazing.
That's awesome, man. So I've been wanting to get, more real estate people on the podcast to tell their story, especially people who are still at the beginning stages, I would say. I don't like calling people rookies because it's like once you got a deal, then you're no longer a rookie anymore. But yeah, so I'm super excited for you to come on and share how you got into it and where it's taken you so far.
Yeah. So I kind of just did the very traditional route, like high school, went straight into college. I played football. And so like my schooling was like paid for. And I kind of like got caught up in the like scheme of like school sports, girls. I completely lost my scholarship. And I kind of like made up for it, and through some like government assistance and my dad being in the military, I ended up like transferring schools, went to Alabama, continued my career for like a legit semester in football, and then I graduated. I got my master's, and then went straight into the workforce. And immediately COVID hit, and I know many people similarly kind of like hit this like epiphany, and their minds opened up with like resources being taken away and kind of having to be creative and making money. And just by like chance, Robert Kiyosaki's book fell into my lap, and I read it and that right there opened up my mind to real estate. And it was no more than a few months where I was just kind of plugging in numbers and like, how can I make this happen? Looking at duplexes. And a year after that, kind of went through a complete like cycle change of my mindset, my finances, and was able to purchase my first property in November of 2021.
Okay, so let's take it back a little bit. So 2020, you're just living an average life, playing sports. You're in college. What were you studying in college?
So I got my undergrad in psychology, and then I pursued my master's in counseling. So I wanted to be a school counselor. And when I graduated, I was applying counseling jobs, but I actually ended up landing a dean position. Just kind of like elevated me, kind of like jumped all of the ranks to that position, and kind of put me in a spot where I could like connect with a lot of people.
Gotcha. So 2020 hits and people are scrambling. We don't know if the world is going to burn down. And then Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I assume is the book you're talking about, fell into your lap by Robert Kiyosaki. Guys, we talk about it all the time. And of course, I'm going to have the book linked down in the show notes. Phenomenal read. I would suggest it for everybody. So 2020, you read this book. And then how did you prepare yourself? What were the tactical steps that you took from the point you read the book to the point where you were hitting the market to purchase your first deal? Like, were you consuming more educational content, or did you just read it and you're like, yep, I'm just gonna go do it, and went and did
it? Yeah, a little bit of both actually. So I like to dive in fully, and I got the book on audio and I put it on 3x speed. And so I went through the book in legit, I don't know, an hour. I just followed along with my finger and just soaked it all up. And I did that for everything. So the Bigger Pockets podcast, put it on 3x speed, just sucked it all up, all the information. And I just had so much, I just kind of twisted my mindset into, okay, this is my goal. I have to acquire this much funds. And then as I was doing that, I learned something new. As I was learning that, I learned something new, and just kind of all together. I sort of just like gave myself like an arsenal of tools to sort of attack like in pursuing real estate.
Gotcha. Yeah, and of course, again, bigger pockets. We talk about a lot on the podcast because they've done so much inspiration for my real estate investing. So, what did your initial financial footing look like when you started in 2020? I mean, were you employed? Did you have tons of debt, or what was your overall financial picture starting out?
I like no debt at all. I had no school debt, no credit card debt, no car note, no nothing like that. I was debt completely zero. Um, and so I had a job. I was making, you know, decent money, but I just knew that that wasn't enough. And so one of my passions is like garage selling and um, offer up Facebook Marketplace, Goodwill, kind of finding things either for free or cheap, and then just resell it. And that kind of became like my side hustle. And then along with me working at the school, I was bartending on the side. So I had multiple streams of income that were coming in, and then I would do other little side gigs. So through 2020, I truly began investing like in the stock market, like many other people, and kind of throw my money into things. And like I learned through that. I took a lot of losses, but I really learned a lot. And so by the end of 2020, I truly was just kind of sitting on a couple of $1,000s. But all of the side hustles and everything, having a second job and everything was what really kind of like gave me the launch point and catapulted me coming out of 2020 into 2021 with a better framework. And so then I kind of like really dove in, was working a lot of hours and side hustling a lot, really reselling on eBay and Etsy and all those kind of things.
Okay, so it sounds like you didn't just stumble your way into starting in real estate. It sounds like you've never been afraid of hard work, right? You've always been willing to put in the hard work. But with that being said, how did you graduate with no school debt? I know you mentioned that your family is military, so did they transfer the GI Bill for you to get through that, or how'd that work?
Yeah, exactly. So my tuition was fully paid for, and then I would get like a small stipend, which I would use towards my housing. And so I came out of pocket with the rest of my housing, my food and utilities and such. But throughout college as a full-time student, I always worked, and I mean exorbitant amount of hours. I would even give up my spring breaks to work double. So like you said, I've never ever been afraid to work hard ever.
That's crazy, man. Because everybody says, if a student is working while they're in college, they're going to be failing all their classes. They're never going to graduate. All of these big old boogeyman's in the closet. But really, what did you give up? Beer pong with the guys or hanging out with the chicks all night, or you probably still could have done those things and worked. So I think that's phenomenal. And I want to point out, right, even though you did have the GI Bill from your parents to cover tuition and get you that monthly stipend, I've run into people who have had that and still taking out student loan debts to fund their lifestyle instead of working. So I don't want to scoot over that as if you were just some privileged guy and this is why you got so successful because of your privilege or whatever, because you still could have made financial mistakes up to that point.
Right.
So so you got these side hustles, you've been working through college, you've got all these side hustles, you're going like Gary V style to
Yeah,
garage sales,
Gary
reselling.
V. That's my
And
guy.
yeah, man, I love him. He's extreme, but man, his message is uncomparable. So you start this hustle to continue to make money. How did that transition into 2021 when you were building up to purchase your first property?
So I had my school. That was my main job, and so that was just like stable income. I knew what I was getting. Um, the bar that I was bartending at night, so I get off my school job and go straight to the bar. And that money's kind of like variable, like it varies. You don't exactly know what you'll make, but for the most part, I could sort of at the end of my month look at my budget and know that I would get like a set amount of dollars, and then I would just set goals for myself through my reselling on eBay and Amazon, Facebook Marketplace. I was like, if I can make this much, then I can put aside this much, which will allow me to save up to ultimately reach the goal of purchasing. My goal was to purchase a property by the end of 2021. Um, but it was through all my research that I was able to find a mortgage program which had so many great benefits that it kind of I backtracked because I knew that this program was going to help me with the down payment. So I didn't have to come out of pocket so much. I knew they were going to help me with the closing costs and all the fees. I was like, well, if I don't have to pay all this, if I can store all this money that I'm making, it'll then allow me to like skip a step and then put that money to the next investment deal. So as I'm working all of 2021, it went from me working to put that money to work in my first deal to me working to then save slash invest. So instead of having to put the money towards this first deal that I was able to acquire, I was able to invest all that money, and I found other like streams and sources to like put my money into to keep it liquidable, but still generate interest or yield payout, or sort of just 2x my money and then be able to pull it back out without any risk. I know that if I were to have to put down that down payment, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So that's what really gave me the opportunity.
Okay, so I assume you're talking about like a first-time homebuyers program where they assist with down payment and closing costs, or is this something different? Or
Yeah, so it's similar to a first time program, and I found this kind of just going through a YouTube like rabbit hole. I just kind of dove in and I just landed on this woman's page who documented her journey through using NACA. And have you ever heard of NACA?
I have not, man. I am excited. Educate me.
Yeah, I think I forget the acronym exact. It's like neighborhood something, but basically it's a nonprofit organization that kind of works as the middleman to with Bank of America. So my loan for my property is with Bank of America, but all of the work that I did from the beginning of 2021 up until closing was worked through NACA. And so what NACA does is, it's not a first time homebuyers program per se, but you can't own a property while going through the program. So if you had a property now, you'd have to sell it, and then you can get a property through NACA. So because
Gotcha.
I had nothing. Yes, I'm a first time homebuyer, but that's just kind of like a label at that point. And so they not, I say assist as, and I'm downplaying it. They covered everything. So when I closed my property, I paid $0.
Mhm.
Like nothing. I
So
paid nothing.
is this like a local nonprofit? Is this national or?
Yeah, it's national. It's from here, South Florida to New York to Seattle. It's everywhere, LA. I've read plenty of stories on forums and success stories of plenty of people who have closed on properties throughout the entire country.
Yeah, I looked it up. The Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America,
Yeah,
fighting for economic justice with America's best mortgage. It says who should attend: home buyers, homeowners, renters. Okay. NACA's best in American mortgage, no down payment, no closing costs, no fees, below market fixed rate. Okay, so this is okay. You know, I've never heard, and I've absorbed a lot of content over the last few years, and I have never come across this. So this is awesome, man. And wow, yeah. So man, I'm gonna look more into this. This is awesome. Okay, so NACA, you get in contact with NACA, and they cover everything.
everything. Yeah,
So let's start, and then you clarified that you don't have to be a first time home buyer. You just cannot own any properties, which is a good little caveat to add on. You just
exactly.
happen to be a first time home buyer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then so you mentioned that you were putting your money into something, an investment to let it grow. And then
Yeah.
you said because you, so I'm a bit confused. So you didn't need the money at all for the purchase, which is why you chose to invest it.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I was doing a lot like Robinhood and Webull, and then from there, a little more research. I'm like, I'm taking losses. I wanted it to be a little bit more secure. I opened up an Acorns account. From there, kind of crypto started like blowing up, becoming a bigger thing. So I found out about BlockFi. I was putting my money in this interest account that was paying me 10%. I just put $1,000 in. It was like this little risk, and it was kind of automatic. And so I putting more money in. Found out some other like crypto, like CFI and DeFi, and it's like, okay, so I'm putting my money in, and I'm getting these returns that my bank wasn't giving me. I was getting 0.5%, if that, and then I'm putting in a minimal fraction of the amount of money I have in my bank, and I was getting 10% back. And I'm like, well, what am I doing? Like I feel like if the bank's not going to do me this favor, and they're just raking me on fees, and they're just paying out less than a percent, I'm gonna take my money elsewhere. And it never became an issue with my bank and Bank of America. I just basically just told them what I was doing with my money. They knew that the funds were coming for me, and it really just like catapulted me. You're not going to get 10% guaranteed payouts on Monday from anywhere else. And once I figured that out, I was like, well, this really has opened me up to like a different experience. I know that I'm getting essentially like $100 a week or more.
Well, so was it invested? Was this like just a savings account where they paid you interest, or were you picking different cryptos to invest in and get that return? Where was that return coming from?
Yeah, you put your money into some sort of asset from Bitcoin to Ethereum. But to get that 10%, I was just putting the money into stable coins. So like the idea behind a stable coin is that it just kind of doesn't fluctuate any more than $1. It doesn't go really below, it doesn't really go up. So you're not getting any like appreciation per se on your investment, but you get the payout by lending your money to whatever platform. They'll give you that 10% back. So it's a savings account that they're kind of, on their end, they're taking that money and they're doing their own thing, and then they're rewarding you back with that 10%.
Gotcha. So it wasn't really a risk-free thing, but it was more of you weren't picking the coins that the money was. It's kind of like, so for example, I'll compare it to a bank, right? You put your money into the bank and they guarantee you interest. Now, how they lend that money out and whether it goes up or goes down, you still get your interest. This is the same thing where you're putting the money into the account and they might be investing it into other coins that may go up or down, but you're getting that interest regardless.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's where you were putting your money. So let's talk about your first property, the one that you got through using NACA. What was the property? How did you find it? What did the numbers initially look like? Let's go into that.
Yeah. So through the process of going with NACA, I had an agent, but I knew that he was overworked and had so many other clients. Unfortunately for me, my experience with working an agent, it was me going out and finding the deals and then he would put in the offer like on my behalf. And so with this particular property, I would see it on MLS, on Zillow, and would kind of overlook it. Like I would see it, I had it saved, but I just never really clicked on it. And then one day after work, I drove by and the outside was great. I was like, wow, great landscaping, it's a pretty solid area. And so I extended that to my agent and he set up a showing. And so the seller's agent met me there. And then really he kind of tells me the true like makeup of the property. So it's two buildings side by side and it's listed as a duplex, two duplexes. And then when I get to the property, there's 3 exterior doors. And he tells me that it used to be a triplex. They just cut, like they installed 2 doors and combined 2 units. And so he's telling me that what the previous owner was doing was leasing out the 2 like bookend units and then Airbnb being that middle unit. And for the reason that they put in a door is because the city was cracking down on the number of meters on the building. There's only 2 meters on each building, but in order to operate it as a full triplex, it had to be 3. So basically they just schemed their way around it and made it work. But by having 3 exterior doors and 3 kitchens, I can still continue to operate it as 3 units. I just can't have like an annual lease, which makes sense for me. It works out great because I can just Airbnb that, which is my plan to do. So I'm right now going through the process of kind of renovating the unit and getting it ready for Airbnb now. But I purchased the property for $820, and NACA allows you to go up to, I think it's 115, the LTV. So I basically wrapped up everything, all of my repairs, the roof, AC, plumbing, electric, everything into my loan. And so even with all of that, I still haven't come out of pocket.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to wrap my head around this. This is crazy. So the property is listed as a duplex, but it's 2 duplexes that are detached, and one of them is 3 doors.
Both of them are 3 doors.
So it's 6 units total.
Yes.
So each duplex had an Airbnb running out of it.
Correct.
Okay. Wow. So was this considered commercial or was this considered residential during the purchase?
During the purchase, it's full residential.
Huh. So
yes.
You were able to get residential financing, which those of you guys who do not know, residential financing, you get better terms, lower closing costs and lower interest rates. Wow. Okay, so now you have the financing and they financed 115%. You purchased it for $820. And now you have 6 units or I would say you're probably house hacking, right?
Yeah, I'm house hacking.
So that's another interest rate cut, right? Because man, okay, this is great. And I assume NACA, they only allow for primary. They don't allow for investment purchases. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, I'm trying to wrap my head around. This is crazy. And see, I love how you didn't really give it any attention up front. You saw it multiple times. You're like, too much. And then you inquired about it and found all of this hidden gold,
Yeah,
I
that
would
the
say.
value was kind of like intrinsically built in, but it wasn't forthright given to me on either on the MLS or my agent. I had to speak to the seller's agent who was like, look, you're actually going to get a great deal if you do this and you do this. He's like giving me the insight. I'm like, oh yeah, you're making a lot of sense here. And I see the 3 exterior doors. I'm like, so was it like, I don't get it. He's like, oh, because it was a triplex. We just made it a duplex by creating a door between 2 units. I'm like, oh, and my brain just starts racking. I'm like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. It took my cash flow from one thing to the next. Because originally I'm running my numbers. I'm like, that's an okay deal. It took it from an okay deal to an exceptional deal.
Mm. Because now you have the short-term rental income just compounding on top of that. That is
Exactly.
crazy. Okay, so you purchased the property for 820. NACA funds 100% of the purchase, the rehab up to 115% of the value. Do you remember what the appraisal came back as? Did they appraise it as a duplex, or was there any issues there?
They praise it as a quad, like so 4 units. There wasn't many great comps in the area, so it was listed at 850 and it appraised at 820, and so the seller agreed to that purchase price. And even then, he even continued to give me credit and concessions. He still gave me 20,000, despite the appraisal being less than his asking price.
Man, oh man. And then this was 2021. So this was in a pretty this was what month of 2021 was this?
November. Actually, I closed on my birthday, November 9th.
November 9th. So wow. So this was clear as day in the period of the housing blow up, where properties are going up in value and there's not enough inventory. And this wasn't in 2020 where everybody was all shook. And this was I would call it post pandemic, where everything is calmed down and you're still able to find this absolute home run of a deal just because you got more information on it.
Yeah.
So let's go into the numbers a little bit. So what is the market rent for each of the properties? No, let's just go with not the short-term rentals, exclude those, just the 4 units, and of course the one you live in.
Okay. Yeah. I inherited 3 tenants, and they had been here for 3 years prior. And so through the pandemic, the previous owner didn't raise any rents. He hadn't done any renovations, any rehab, so well below market. And so as I come in, I keep rents the same for about 3 months, and I slowly kind of meet with each of them and increase the rent to like some sort of like favorable middle ground, because I also don't want to kick them out either. So I've raised rent slightly, and even then I'm still below market, like well below market. I think I could probably get 1,500 for my 1 bedrooms, and I'm have them at 1,300, and the quote unquote 2 bedroom on the other building, I could probably get 22 to 2,300, and I have them at 1,750.
Gotcha. So there's plenty of room for growth as tenants start moving out, renovations get done, and market. There's the growth potential is by far there. So I assume since you're able to, you said after 3 months you were able to, negotiate with your tenants. I assume they're all on month to month, or have you go ahead and had them sign year-long leases, or how are you navigating that?
So one of my tenants, a great tenant, he was locked in just before I closed with the previous owner, so he's on a year lease, and he'll be up in September. But the other 2 are, yes, they're on month to month, and they're great tenants, and they're open to staying longer, but they just kind of want to. They too are kind of reading the market of like, well, if I leave, I can do this, but so they want a little bit of flexibility, so I've kept them on month to month.
Gotcha. And I think that's a pretty good negotiating tactic on your hand, because you can say, look, I'll keep you month to month and I'm not going to charge you market rent. I'll charge you below market rent. And, it's kind of a win-win situation for your tenants who can possibly purchase a home if they want to, or move out if they want to, but it keeps their options open while you also get an increased amount of rent in your pocket.
Yeah.
So this kind of leads into the next portion, which is actually, before we go to that, the short-term rentals. So you have 2 short-term rentals. Are they currently in operation, or I see that you're doing renovations all the time. How are you navigating that so far?
Yeah. So right now, I think I'm going through this part now where I'm kind of doing the final touches. I'm caulking things. I'm heading to Home Good, TJ Maxx, buying furnishing and decoration. So I think right now I'm about like 2 weeks out
And that's on
before I
both
go live
units.
on both. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, okay, what do you project? I'm sure you've done projections using things like AirDNA and stuff like that. What do you project the income for each of them to produce?
Um, I'm thinking I'm gonna get for the one studio. It's essentially a studio. About 95 a night. Um, and then if I open up the door, and then remember I told you it's 2 units and they just put the door in. So if I open up the door, I now create 2 bedrooms, which then of course increases the occupancy. It now includes a full kitchen, a laundry room, includes a backyard with private access. It's easily like 200 a night. And then so that's really going to maximize my cash flow, my gross income, especially with summertime coming up and peak travel season. So I'm really pushing now to really get it up and going in these next couple weeks. Hopefully by like the middle June, be able to get it up and running.
Gotcha. And so, are you currently cash flowing after accounting for capital expenditures? And I'm not sure if you have property management, but all the expenses that come with real estate, are you currently cash flowing without the short term rentals, or did you buy it in expectation that the short term rentals is what's really going to bring in the bacon?
Yeah. So with the numbers that I got from the very beginning when I ran my numbers, I knew I wouldn't cash flow right away, especially with the rents well below market. And so when I brought up the rents, it brings me to about $300 out of pocket every month. And that is after expenses, my capex, my repairs, vacancies. After all that is set aside, my water bill, everything. Um, I come out of pocket about $300. So that's me knowing that if I just Airbnb 1 unit, I would be cash flowing.
Yeah, and then when you keep using the word come out of pocket, but you're not actually coming out of pocket. You're just saying if you had repairs every single month or that, then you would be coming out of pocket.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got you. I just
exactly.
want to clarify, like you're not literally paying $300, but hypothetically speaking, as you run the numbers, it factoring in capex and all that, then you're losing money every single month.
Yeah.
But it's temporary, and with the short-term rental income about to pick up, I mean, this is going to turn something that people were looking over into an absolute gold mine. And as tenants start moving out, I assume you're going to be updating the properties, getting them up to market rent. So this just goes to the fact that real estate isn't necessarily a today thing. Like you want to cash flow to keep the game, to keep the ball rolling. But when you look at it 5 years, 10 years, when you look at those time horizons, or even 2 years after you're able to renovate the whole thing, you could sell it and get the new value out. So there's so many different options that you have in order to capitalize on the property as a whole. And not only that, but also you live there, so you're lowering your personal living expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is phenomenal, man. So you get residential financing, you're living there, we went through all that, you're renovating yourself. So let's go into that, because I saw that you quit your job in order to do this real estate thing full time. So let's talk about that. What caused you to decide to just quit your full time job and go real estate full time?
Yeah, very very simply, I just wasn't happy doing what I was doing at the school. And it took a lot of like self-reflecting and like self-auditing of, I invested, my whole academic career to pursue this. And, quite quite soon into it, I was like, this isn't making me happy. And much of that was just my time being taken away from me, my freedom. For me, there's just nothing else more important to me than my freedom and being able to do what I want when I want. And it just wasn't allowing me to do that. And reading the success stories and of real estate and what it offers you, with the kind of avenues it allows you to take, I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to um, offer a service and a product that ultimately will pay me every month so that I don't have to work as hard. I mentioned I will work. I love working, but I don't like working for someone else. And I will put in the work hours and hours. But ultimately I quit my job because I chose freedom over um, having a boss and someone telling me what to do. And ultimately it was an issue over PTO with my school. And I really needed it. My mother was sick and I was denied, and I just couldn't believe that that was ever a thing. and it just kind of drove me to my very end. And in the middle of Thanksgiving break, I just knew I wasn't going back.
Yeah, I think if there's employers out there that are listening to this, PTO, right, is not an option for most people, man. Like either you're gonna accept it or you're not gonna get us back. I mean, for mine, I have an awesome employer, which is why I don't mind going to work every day because they're all awesome. I've never had any issues taking any time off. But to to your point, it's like, especially when it's something out of your control and it's something super duper important, don't mess with my PTO. This is earned time and I'm going to use it regardless. And unfortunately, instead of letting you go for however many weeks you wanted to in order to return, they lost you completely. So just to speak to the employers out there, that might be something you might want to think about. So with that being said, I know your main focus is on renovating these short-term rentals and uh, getting them functional and getting that income coming in. Is that what you plan to live on, or do you plan on how do you plan on supporting yourself going forward? Do you plan on getting a formal job again, or you just taking real estate full time, purchasing and renovating stuff like that?
Yeah, so I look at real estate as like a continuous full-time job, but it's very much like a hobby. Like I wanted to eventually um replace my like W-2 job. So I still bartend. I do about 3 to 4 nights a week, and that's more than enough to give me income to live, continue to go out, do things, and enjoy pleasure. So I'm not I'm not just like I'm not retired. I'm not just cruising. I still work, um, but I'm banking on my investments to sort of give me more freedom and more breath, more life, so I can not work as hard. I can kind of just choose to go in. 3 nights a week would just be like great for me. I can go in and still have a good time and still serve my bar guests because I love doing that. But I couldn't do the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday and work on the weekdays to live on the weekend. I just can't do that. It just doesn't like bring me any sort of joy.
Yeah, I feel that, man. I definitely feel that. And I think it's another great thing to point out is like using things like real estate or using things like the stock market in order to build wealth is what gives you that time back. And yeah, now you get to enjoy your time still doing what you want to do in the bar, but you're also going to have supplemental income just in case a month gets hard or you decide you don't want to work at the bar for the week. You still have that income from the short-term rentals in order to supplement that. So I think that's awesome. And so I guess because you're still working on getting your short-term rentals up and running and getting those fully functional, have you had any, has it caused any difficulties or do you foresee it causing any difficulties not having a normal 9 to 5 job in the future if you go to acquire properties? And I want to preface that by saying, I know that self-employed people are able to get financing and of course they have debt service coverage ratios and there's tons of different options to get financing, but people earlier in the game really like to use those conventional low interest rate loans. So do you foresee there ever being a problem not having that 9 to 5 W-2 income in order to get fund deals in the future?
Yeah, so I think prior to me ever considering quitting my school job, I sort of wrapped my brain around those possibilities, and still working the job at the bar, I still do get a W-2 income. I still get that tax return at the end of the year, and I report all my tips. I mean, it's no different than working the job at the high school. So when it comes to traditional financing, I'm still set in that sense. I just know that my like reported income will be slightly lower than it was in the previous years because, like I said, seasonal and tips vary. It's never the exact same. But when going through NACA and working with um, like the lender, they understood that tips are changing every month. It's just as simple as reporting them as they are and giving them all your pay stubs and bank statements, and they work with me. So I'm not too worried about the future and getting traditional lending.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you brought that up. Is like the income you still make is going is your door isn't completely closed, right? You
Right.
still have income coming in to help with that. So that leads to the next question or topic. So you do something that I look, man, I can fix things. I don't enjoy it, right? I laid a couple, luxury vinyl planking. Like I luxury vinyl plank the room. It's not for me. I don't have the patience. I can't tile. I don't have the patience. I can fix things, but I am not a builder. I'm not a renovator. And it looks like you are. You are doing those things. So has your time become more profitable, using it to get these short-term rentals renovated and fixed up as it comparable to where your time could have been spent either in the bar working or uh, either your dean position you used to be in? Has it become more profitable, or has it kind of been a break even, or how has that looked?
Uh, I I think it's somewhere between even or above that. I think the value that I get in learning these skills or like fine tuning them right now while I'm still young and my body's able to do it, and I do have the like time to actually put in the sweat equity. I think that value is priceless. And I say that because prior to even attempting the vinyl planking, 'cause I hadn't done it before, I did call around handymen and other tradesmen to see kind of like, hey, what would it look like if I were to hire someone out? And those numbers kind of jumped out at me. I was like, well, if I can do it myself and I give up 3 days to do this, I now have a skill under my belt. I now know what the market is. Um, and I did a great job. If I hadn't done that, then I just kind of would have gone blindlessly into like the bidding wars with contractors. And now seeing the work and what it takes to do it, I feel like I have knowledge now under my belt where I can now do it either myself. I can choose to hire someone out, or I could even teach it to someone at maybe a lower rate. I don't know, but I think what my time is worth now is greater knowing that I have the skills and now the knowledge to do so. Maybe in the future, while my plate is a little too big or I have other projects, I can choose to hire it out, especially after I have the income from short-term rentals and my long-term tenants. I can make that decision. But here now in the beginning, while I'm able to do it, I think it's a great decision that I chose to do that.
Yeah, I think you hit on something that I don't want to, you kind of blew past it. But a great thing about learning a skill like that is you know what to look for when hiring it out. And I'll give a very quick example. I am not a tax professional, but I have educated myself on taxes up to a certain extent. I know what is taxable. I know what is a deductible. I know these things. And so when I hired out a tax professional this year, they completely ruined my tax returns. I had a higher return. I'm telling them, like, listen, I need to pay more taxes. And they're like, no, you don't. The documents are wrong, blah, blah, blah. And they gave me every rule in the book because they were lazy and didn't want to do it correctly. But if I did not have the education beforehand to know, like, wait a minute, this needs to be taxed, that needs to be taxed, then I would have, defrauded the IRS. And I ended up, of course, hiring someone else and I got it fixed. But it's because I took the time to educate myself on the process. It gave me a better lens to look at other professionals through. And a lot of people may think that, well, you shouldn't be telling the professionals what to do. Like, what's the point of hiring them? And the fact is, like, no one is perfect. And you have to understand that. And so if you know something, or if you think you know something that someone else doesn't, or if you think that you're correct and someone else doesn't, it is worth mentioning and either correcting the issue or getting educated on why you're wrong. And so same thing with you, as you're laying this luxury vinyl planking, you know, if a professional comes in and they're laying it like row by row and all the rows are even and it's not offset at all, you're like, hey, wait a minute, buddy. I laid this
Yeah.
before and that is not how you do it. Like, but yeah, I'm, even though I'm not a handyman and I don't really personally enjoy doing those things, I do agree with you that learning the skills gives you a wider, more educated lens to look at people when you hire them out in the future. And it's the same thing for like property management. If you ever look for a property management company, because I assume you manage your properties on your own, you know what to look for in a property manager. If they don't answer their phone, well, when tenants call, they're not going to answer their phone. And so, yeah, I think it's pretty undervalued, the fact that having the knowledge and knowing what to look for. So, Darius, going forward, so you found this property, and it's been a home run, or it's going to be a home run, and it's going to definitely catapult you forward in income earnings and things like that. What is your strategy going forward? Because you could correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not going to find many more deals like the one you just found.
Yeah, I think I continue to work, and I live like a very like minimalist life. Like I'm not really into like big flashy things or materialistic stuff. So, I'm happy with the lifestyle that I live because it allows me to just enjoy the simple things. So every dollar that I make at the bar or through investing, I just reinvest it. I don't really like take out a whole lot. When it comes to like paying myself first, I do, but it's just so minimally. And so like I have funds ready for a deal if presented. And I think as I wrap up this project here on this property, my goal is to um, by the end of the year have another property under my belt. And so I'm going to use the funds that I have, either seller financing, creative financing, traditional. I'm going to bring everything, all the tools that I have, and use that to find the deal that makes sense for me. And for me, I'm looking for. It may be tough now with rates going up and the purchase prices still being high, but my goal is to cash flow. Like I want cash flow. And that's going to be tough to find, but I think there are markets outside of South Florida that allow you to do so.
Yeah, I know there's markets out there. And so what when you say cash flow, right? There's so many different ways that you can approach this, at least from I've learned. You can buy turnkey, you can buy a burr, you can flip something to create income. Well, I guess that's not really cash flow, but are you looking for distressed properties? Are you looking for multifamily? Is there one thing that you're looking for that you want to be, because you're doing multifamily now and a lot of people stick with that? Or is it kind of just I will look at whatever deal comes my way and whatever it is, and I'll evaluate them individually?
Yeah, I'm open to all deals. I kind of right now because I'm in multifamily, I'm kind of like more familiar with that, and I do like the idea of having multiple units to kind of sort of hedge against maybe like a tenant leaving or something like that, some sort of a downfall. But I do like the idea of a single family home and with having like one tenant, one family, less headache, less phone calls. But in terms of either turnkey or burr, um, I'm open to trying everything. I want to taste it all. I want to have like an at bat at everything. But um, I just kind of envision myself truly just I know like I'm hard headed and stubborn, finding a property that I feel like I can turn around and try to like get a decent price and then just put the work into it and bring the value, the equity up into it.
Gotcha. So you would want to buy something hopefully locally and do it yourself,
Yeah,
perform the renovations yourself.
yeah, I would love to. I think, like I said, like my time in doing that is valuable to me. Like it's doing something that makes me happy. And of course, certain things like plumbing, electrical, I don't really touch. I don't have those skills, but everything else, I just feel like my hands are capable, and I would love to do it myself. But I'm not against hiring out. I'm totally not. I've never said that. I will hire for the task that I definitely can't do.
Gotcha. So you want to stick to normally like the less, okay, I don't want to call it less important because it's kind of the most important, but things that it's really hard to mess up, right? So for example, laying flooring, it's really hard to mess that up. Or if painting, it's really hard to mess that up. Like things that are easily fixable and things that aren't overwhelming to you that don't require a team. Like or are you getting up on the roof and putting a roof on? Like, you know?
No, yeah, I think you got it right. Yeah, there's things that just like my dad taught me, the painting and changing the toilet. I changed the toilet this weekend, my first time, and it leaked. And I just kind of like YouTube diagnostic, YouTube University is the best. I figured it out and I replaced my toilet. But that was my first time ever doing that. I've never done that. And a few weeks ago, my tenant let me know that his faucet was leaking. I figured out how to do it. And it just makes me like proud and happy. And two, my tenants, when I do those things, and that's not the only other time my tenants have called me to fix something. When they see me doing these things, it just puts me in a good light, and they know that I actually care about this property and I care for their units, and that I'm not just the stereotypical slumlord. It paints the picture that I actually care about what I'm doing. I put my attention and my love into this property. Um, but yeah, like you said, up on the roof, I didn't touch the roof. I hired that completely out. I didn't even. He offered me to actually go up and inspect the roof. I didn't want to go up the
Well, I'm not getting up there, man.
ladder.
Yeah, that's great. And that's I love that you brought that up, is like the fact when tenants know that you care about them, they're more likely to respect your things more. And of course, I don't want to be the person to say like you own everything, right? Like your tenants own their units, it belongs to them, but they take care of it more, and and they're more likely to call you up and say, hey, I'm having this issue, compared to the slumlords who say, hey, fix it yourself, or I'm not coming through, or I'm not sending anybody, you better have rent on the first. Showing people that you care about them makes them more likely to be cooperative and to be respectful and to be courteous. So
Yeah, getting those texts from my tenants saying thank you for pulling the weeds, or installing. I put up a fence around the property to add a little bit of security and some privacy. And even to this day, I still get thank yous, and it looks so nice. And I have a family that has a young daughter, and they don't have to worry about her running into the street now because she can't even reach the gate latch. But it's great to know that she has this like compound that I was able to provide for her, a level of security. And they definitely like let me know.
yeah, I think I don't manage my own properties, but I do make sure to take care of my tenants to the best of my abilities. And my property manager is awesome. I've been using them for a while, so yeah, I love that, man. It's okay. I'm just gonna say it, right. A lot of people who self manage are lazy. They're trying to pinch the penny and they're trying to save every dollar they can because they bought an absolutely terrible deal that they should never bought, and that's why they self manage and do these things. But it's really, really good to hear that you are actually taking care of your tenants, because you hear the horror stories all the time. And last question when it comes to that, though, are you, to your tenants, are you the property manager or are you the owner? How do they address you?
Sorry. It's a funny story actually. I went with all intentions to portray myself as the property manager. But when I put in the offer on the property, um I got it accepted. And about 2 weeks in, I drafted up like a letter of like just basically introduce myself, like, hey, I'm under contract. We're gonna go under a new property management, and I kind of portrayed myself as like the property manager. I knock on one door, the tenant's not there. I go on the next, and he has a ring doorbell, and he's like, "Who are you? Why are you here?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm purchasing the property. It's gonna get turned over." And I don't know why, but it's just like turned into this like accusation that I'm like trespassing. I actually got the cops called on me. So as I'm standing on the property under contract, um, the seller on the phone, I'm like, hey, look, this I'm not a trespasser. I basically had to give up all the information. I'm actually the buyer. So I went all intention of being the property manager. I had to out myself and was like, guys, I'm actually buying the property. So it totally blew my cover. So now they know that I'm the like owner. I own the property. I live here. But going forward, as tenant turnover eventually happens, my goal is to tell them I'm just a property manager. I live here, but I'm just managing.
Yeah, I don't mean to laugh, man, but I don't know if that's gonna work out because they whisper, like, hey, did you know Darius actually owns the property? Yes, if you want your toilet replaced, you better tell him. Like, people are gonna be whispering, but I mean, it's wishful thinking, right? And
Yeah.
I just want to explain the reason I asked that for listeners who do not know. A big tip when it comes to managing your own property is you want to be the property manager and you want it to seem as though you need to ask permission from the owner in order to do anything. And that gives you a way to alleviate tension and stress between you and the tenant as the manager and owner. So, for example, right, Darius, let's say Darius got carpet and Darius said, you know what, I want hardwood floors. So he calls up his property manager and I'm the owner, I'm the property manager. And I say, hey, F Darius, I'm not putting in hardwood floors. Well, as a property manager, you could say, hey, the owner doesn't want to put in hardwood floors. And so you alleviate yourself from that accountability aspect. But really, it's just you saying, look, I'm not putting in hardwood floors. It's too expensive. You
Yeah.
don't. So it's a way of just alleviating the accountability and keeping a third party perception to it, to where you need to ask permission from the owner, even though you are the owner. And so that's why I asked that question. So hopefully you're able to get to that point. But I think once your cover's blown, man, I don't think you're gonna be able to switch the hats out.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. All right, Darius. So let's talk about some of your short-term money goals that you like. What do you hope to accomplish within the next 6 months to a year? So you already mentioned that you want to buy another property. You're open to kind of anything, whether it's a BRRRR, turnkey, or whatever cash flow. That's what you're looking for. Is there anything else that you hope to accomplish? Let's just say this year, as the year closes out.
Yeah, I think I would love to, of course, the short-term rentals. It's going to increase the income. I'm still working part-time, but I want to get back into my side hustles and creating other multiple streams of income. So I've kind of put that on the back burner and taking on rehabbing this house because essentially that's my full-time job. I just don't have as much time to run to Goodwill and scroll Facebook Marketplace, finding these gem deals for pennies on the dollar and flipping them the next day. I just don't really have the time to do that. So the next couple of months, I want to be able to continue doing that and hit these garage sales on the weekends because that's also like really like makes me happy. Like finding this deal and how good of a deal this property is no less or more than finding a like a Barbie doll for $1 that's worth really $30 and I can just flip it like that. That rush that gives me is the same. So I want to get back into that, and then I want to continue working on living on less, so reducing my expenses, like eating out less and kind of doing things that aren't really necessary. Sometimes I do find myself doing that, but I want to kind of just live on less and just kind of be happy with less things. I want to be able to like, yeah, since just live on less. Yeah.
Yeah, just lower your expenses. Try and figure out what is it that you truly enjoy and get rid of the things that don't fit that criteria.
Yeah.
I think that's a very productive thing to do, especially when purchasing more rentals, because it's just going to lead to exponential growth in the long run when you can figure out what I value and what I don't and just cut the things you don't. So I think that's awesome. So tell me, what are some things that you hope to accomplish within the next 5 to 10 years? And what does the finish line actually look like for you?
5-10 years, definitely multiple deals, properties, multiple rentals. Would love to kind of branch out of South Florida, like I mentioned, and get into some other markets, be able to like visit and see what that's like. But my end goal, I don't really imagine myself being like a very stereotypical retired and like just sipping, margaritas on the beach. Like I don't ever really see myself stopping. I want to just continue working. It's just like working, it just kind of fuels me. So like my goal isn't to retire. It's just my goal is just to make life easier and just to do the things that I love. So purchasing and investing in these rental properties, the goal isn't to eventually stop. It's to just allow me to have more free time to do more. To be able
Yeah, I
to
think you hit on something. Like I get it, man. Humans need purpose, right? And as soon as we have no purpose, we start dying. I mean, it's statistically proven. Like once people retire, the likelihood of them dying sooner increases because they do not have a purpose. They do not have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. So they might sleep until 1, 2, or 3. And if you're not living, you're dying. So I 100%, a lot of people think that the FIRE movement, the financially independent retire early, like everyone says, I don't want to retire. And I 100% agree with that. I don't foresee myself retiring anytime soon, but I want that. I want the first half though, that financial independence. I want that half because
yeah.
that gives you time back to do the things you want to do and to create your own schedule. And you get to formulate business around your lifestyle instead of formulating your lifestyle around your business. So we're going to go into the final questions of the podcast. And Darius, of course, I ask these questions to every single guest that comes on. Are you ready?
Yeah, what you got?
All right. Question number 1. Everyone has their own definition of what it means to have financial peace. What is your definition?
Financial peace is just being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it and not having anything over your head that essentially is just capping you and your growth and your potential. My financial peace is being able to up and go and not have to look back.
Yeah, I can't argue with that one, man. Question number 2. If there are listeners out there that want to start building wealth and they have no clue where to get started, what would you tell them?
I think you just have to work. I think that there's something about like you mentioned, like having purpose, but something about having like a work ethic and discipline. Like you have to have those things. Like sports teach that. Being part of some sort of team teaches that. You have to like be able to have this like grit to just be able, like I know you don't want to do it, but you just have to be able to do it to start to build wealth. Like nobody wealthy just is wealthy. I think everybody who's wealthy put in work to it. Like even if you were gifted $1 million, if you're gonna keep that $1 million, you have to do something. Like you just have to work. And I think it's just not gonna fall on your lap. Like get up and do the research, get active, talk to people, kind of get outside of your comfort zone. Like working isn't necessarily like sweating working. You don't have to go out and be out in the field or whatever, but you have to just, put yourself in a position where you are with people that are already where you are. Like you have to open up those conversations and get into those doors. It's like it's work.
Yeah, I mean, I I know that especially the younger generation, people around my age, none of us like to work. And I don't think anyone has ever enjoyed working per se, especially in fields that they don't want to. And so there's a certain level of entitlement there is to where the world owes me something. I shouldn't have to work as hard as Darius and I should get the same exact thing. That's why the whole conversation of equality of outcome is so blasphemous. It's because it's basically saying I can do half the work that you do and I should get the same rewards. That's why I think equality of opportunity is so important. But like you said, if you're not willing to put in the work, you are never going to reap the same rewards that someone else who has put in the work has. If you want what they have, you have to do what they've done and you have to go through what they've gone through. So, question number 3: if there's one thing you could advise everyone to avoid doing to begin building wealth, what would that be?
Stop worrying about what everyone else thinks. It's about what you consume. The media, music, the videos that you're watching, and stop allowing that to shape this utopian like lifestyle. Like it's a lot of it's fake. It's not realistic. Do what makes you happy. Like if it makes you happy to you know pressure wash, like don't let anybody else tell you that pressure washing is for you know like a like a low income type job. Like it's your business. Be happy doing that. Like it's your freedom. Don't let anybody tell you that what you're doing isn't made out for you. It's your job. It's your journey. It's your path. Like it's you create it. Don't worry about what anybody else says.
Yeah, I think that social media really has made that so much more difficult, especially when you see people portraying a life that you want to live, even when they're not living it. And so, yeah, I think it's very difficult to not keep up with the Joneses because we have a little TV in our pocket that we can that we're always have access to seeing. And uh, uh, Darius from the Kid Vesters, he had a great saying is like, this stuff can either make you bitter or it can make you better. And so you can look at the envy can make you bitter or it can make you better. And so you can look at these things and you can get either inspired by it and it'll convince you to do better, or you can be bitter about it and just dislike your whole lifestyle. So I think that's super duper important. And you shouldn't be surrounding yourself with people who want you to look a certain way. If they don't want the best for you and they just want you to be around to make them look better, then you got to get a new set of friends. So, question number 4, Darius: if there's someone out there that doesn't believe they can reach financial peace due to their age, race, religion, sexual orientation, etc., what would you say to change their mind?
I'd say everybody has hardships. You're not going to find someone who has like the absolute perfect life. And so anybody with some sort of deficit or disability, I think if there's anybody that has done it, that looks like you, that sounds like you, talks like you, if anybody has ever done it, then despite different circumstances, I think it makes that possible.
Yeah, I think, man, a lot of people say that. You have to find someone who looks like you, who you can relate to. And that is inspiration. Because, I mean, people may look at me, and if they don't look like me, if they cannot relate to my upbringing and my lifestyle, then they're not going to seek inspiration if they relate more to people like you. And so, yeah, I think there's always someone who is doing better than you and that started worse than you that you can find inspiration from. But
Yep.
Darius, this conversation has been absolutely amazing, man. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And hopefully I can have you back on in the future to see what deals you've been able to scoop up, whether it's in South Florida or even, other places in the country. So tell me, where can people find out more about you?
So I'm not like a huge social media person. I really wish I was. I really wish I was able to document the things that I do. 'Cause I think it's really neat. I think it's cool. I think people could learn from it. But I do share a fair bit on Instagram. It's my name Darius, fourth and goal. That's my IG handle. And I'm a little bit on TikTok. Just my name Darius Antalan. That's where I post most of my things. So if you want to connect with me or ask any questions, especially about NACA and the process that I went through, or some of the nuances that kind of like involve that and sort of getting started, any sort of like tips and tricks, because going through that program, you learn a lot while going through it that no one tells you. I think I could probably assist anybody in that realm right there.
I can almost guarantee people are going to be hitting you up because anytime you can get into, especially your first property, if you can get into there as little money as possible, especially if it's like a house hack, multifamily, things like that, I think people are going to want to take advantage of that. And the fact that this is the first time I've ever heard of NACA, it either said, there's one of two things. Either everybody knows about it and I don't, and they're making fun of me listening to this, or no one knows about it and you just unleashed the floodgates of people looking into this and hopefully taking advantage of this program to get started in real estate. So yeah, man, I really, really, really appreciate you joining me today and having this conversation. I've learned so much, and I really think that the listeners are going to learn a lot too, man.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of course, Darius. And like I said, open invitation to come back in the future. Maybe you close on a couple more properties and we can get an update, man, and track your journey going forward into the future because you might not want to or you might want to document it and you just don't have enough time and stuff like that. But I want to document all of it, man. I love this.
Yeah,
But all right, Darius, man, I hope you have a blessed rest of your day and hopefully we'll speak to you in the future.
yeah, brother. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Later. And guys, that was our interview with Darius. Man, oh man, do I love this. Imagine finding a duplex, a quadplex that's been on the market for umpteen years, going to see it and realizing it's a quadplex with two short-term rental opportunities. I mean, that is absolutely crazy to think. And now I'm starting to think, like, am I looking past deals that might have intrinsic value that I just don't see or that the listing just doesn't, provoke? I mean, this is why listing agents are so important. They need to market properties to show all of the possibilities that the property has to offer, not just what it's legally zoned as. So him taking this fourplex and now he has the potential to have 6 different sources of income from this one property, which is 4 long-term tenants and 2 short-term tenants. I mean, that is what we call creativity. And it is just phenomenal to hear. So I'm really glad he came on and shared that because now it's going to open up my eyes. Like, I need to look closer at this market and I need to find the value that everyone is overlooking because it is out there, guys. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed. I really hope you guys got value. And I hope this is inspirational for those who want to get started in real estate and you want to go buy your first property and house hack. And then, oh my God, I don't want to forget the NACA system. What in the world? Like, this is crazy. I highly, 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 highly suggest that you guys look into this NACA system because I mean, it's just crazy. Zero down. Yeah, best interest rates. I mean, it is absolutely phenomenal. So make sure you guys look into that. Hopefully, they can help you get into your first property. Like he said, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer, but you have to own 0 properties in order to use their system. And of course, he said they finance up to 115%. So that's closing costs included, man. So that is just phenomenal. So I really hope you guys enjoy. I really hope you guys use these resources in order to get into that first property and begin your real estate investing journey. As always, guys, you can check out my website down in the description, in the podcast show notes, where you can request to be a guest on. You can follow all of our social medias. You can schedule a one-on-one consultation with me completely free. Whatever the case is, it's all located on my website down below. But I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. I'm your host, James Bowman. And always remember, you're only as secure as your ability to perform. So spend your life accumulating assets that can perform for you. Later, guys.